Hello friends, welcome to Ecoholics YouTube channel. My name is Avinash Agarwal and in this video I'll be discussing with you economics current affairs for 18th October 2024. I have selected two articles from one newspaper being Indian Express and another newspaper being Live Mint. Both these articles are very important. As you can see, the first article is speaking about agriculture's performance during the last 10 years. So it will give us a broad understanding of what is happening in Indian agriculture. This particular article is also deriving a lot of content from a recent Niti Aayog report that was published in Economics and Political Weekly regarding what has been the performance of the agriculture sector in the last 10 years. So this is a very important article in that sense, right? Apart from that, the next article that we'll be looking at, okay? So the next article, it speaks about the foreign exchange rate, right? Rupees sharp slide and how much lower can it go, right? So this is what we will be discussing in the second article, right? The internet is a little patchy on my side. There is some technical difficulty that I may be facing. Good morning, Munchiram. I would just request everybody to confirm in the live chat if I am clearly audible and visible to all of you, right? Because the thing is that I don't have access to any other way of confirming today. So I'm speaking and I'm sure that I can see that there are concurrent viewers. But if you all could just be kind enough to just write anything in the live chat immediately so that I get a confirmation that I am audible to you, I'll be at peace knowing that my system is working fine. There is some internet related issues that I am facing at my end today. That's why I'm requesting. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nishita. And thank you so much, Kumar. Thank you. So let us move ahead. Let us see what both these articles are saying. Okay. So guys, I have not given any explicit question for you to practice on these articles. To please practice. Right. Practice is the only thing which is going to make you clear the examinations. You know that very well. Right. I have been saying the same thing for at least, the duration since I've been doing these lectures. Right. So please try to summarize this particular article. That in itself will be an answer for you. And when you summarize it, don't watch the content, read the content or access the content or open an article. Try to do it from your own memory. Try to do it from your own understanding, right? So what is the article saying, right? So what is the Niti Aayog saying? So Niti Aayog has come out with this paper and they are saying that the growth performance of let us say 2004 to let us say 2014 period, right, has been better than let us say the growth performance of 2004 and let's say 1984 period, right? So as compared to what we witnessed in these 2 decades, we have witnessed something better in these 2 decades. That is the first important takeaway from the Niti Aayog report. And the other important takeaway from the Niti Aayog report is this one, right? That the growth performance in this period, broadly speaking, right, the growth performance in this period has been better than the growth performance in this period. Okay. Another very important takeaway from this article, if I have to summarize this article in one word, right? So that one word is a very familiar word to a lot of students of mine. That is diversification. Okay. Diversification is the one word summary of this particular article. Why is diversification the one word summary of this article? Because this particular report or this article is showing, as this table in front of you is showing, that fishing and aquaculture has reported a fabulous growth of 9% plus. Livestock sector has grown a fabulous performance of 5.76%. Milk has grown by 5.78%. We are discussing the growth of these sectors. We are discussing the growth rate of these sectors, right? We are discussing how the value added in these sectors has increased over the years. Okay, so milk is growing at close to 6%, poultry meat is growing at 9% plus. On horticultural crops such as food grains, the growth rate is only 2.63%. If you are growing cereals, the growth rate is only 2.4%, right? If you are growing, let us say, oil seeds, the growth rate is only 2.96%. If you are growing jute, you are actually degrowing. If you are growing cotton, you are not growing at all, right? So what you need to understand over here is that the consumption pattern of our consumers is changing. That is something that is known to us, because as per capita incomes increase, people move beyond cereals towards pulses, towards fruits, towards vegetables, towards meat, towards protein based items, towards dairy based items, and so on. So till the time you don't have an option, आप cereals consume करते हो, the moment your per capita income increases, which is happening in India year on year basis, the consumption, the demand for these items, what is this particular article saying? That if you look at the growth rate of this period and compare it with the growth rate of this period, right? So this latter period, 94 2004, is doing better, right? It's doing better. Okay, so I probably explained it a little wrongly to you in the start, so just forget about that aspect, right? The important thing that we are trying to compare is what's happening in the last 10 years. So they are saying that from, let's say, 2004 to 2014, the UPA government period, Dr. Manmohan Singh period, agriculture grew by 3.5%. When I say agriculture grew by 3.5%, what I'm saying is that all the sectors combined ka average is 3.5%. If you compare what happened between 2014 and 24, last 10 years, that is Modi ji ka period, the agriculture sector grew by 3.7. And in that election wala scenario, what is happening is that, there is this idea that farmers are not exactly happy, that farmers are not, in the best mood. So how do you kind of, explain all these things? And I am stammering a little because I see that there is some internet connectivity issues at my end. So that's why I am stammering a little, right? I'm not sure whether you will be able to hear me or not. So let's just continue. So the idea is that these growth rates that you see, these are average growth rates for agriculture, livestock, forestry and fishing combined together at 2011-12 prices. So that is what we are trying to compare over here. That this performance of the last 2 decades is better than the performance of the previous 2 decades, and the performance of the last decade is better than the performance of the previous decade. That is what we are discussing over here. All right, guys. So the idea over here is that has Indian agriculture really done well? And probably the answer is that if you look at the production of pulses, production of cereals versus, let us say, consumption of cereals. Okay, so if you go to the households and you ask them that how much, let's say, pulses, or let's say how much cereals, how much cereals have you all been consuming, right? So they will say that their consumption has not increased, right? They will say that their consumption has not increased. But if you look at the government's numbers, it will show that cereal production has increased from 185 billion tons to 303 million tons. Okay, but if you go by NSSO's estimates, which is based on household consumption, so NSSO's estimates of looking at household consumption and then multiplying by the number of households we have in the country and arriving at an estimate of consumption. So as per NSSO's estimate, we are still consuming only this much. But as per government's records, we are producing this much. So where is the gap between production and consumption of cereals, right? So the gap was always there. It isn't as if that the gap is there now, but the gap has widened. So earlier, between production estimates and between consumption estimates, production estimates as released by the government and consumption estimates as created by the NSSO. So the gap was around 30 million tons in 2004-5. Now that gap has increased to 150 million tons in 22-23. So there is a question mark that is being raised on these numbers of production. I am not saying that this is the conclusive article. Neither am I saying that this is the conclusive way of looking at this. But there is this discussion that is happening and you need to be aware of this, right? Similarly, if you look at milk production and milk consumption estimates, right? So milk production estimates are standing over here in front of you. I am putting it in a box. That we have been able to increase milk production in our country by 2.5 times from, let's say, 90 million tons to 230 million tons. But there is hardly any increase in consumption. There is hardly any increase in consumption as per the household survey conducted by Niti Aayog, right? So the idea over here is that how is it that we are able to reconcile these? We cannot answer this question in this particular article. Okay. Having said all of this, there is one thing which is crystal clear, and that is, what is happening at the subsector level. We have been recording this time and time again, right? That there is a very large variation in performance in different subsectors. If you look at crops, just crops. Typically, when you think of agriculture, you think of crops. If you think of just crops and nothing else, so you are seeing a growth of around 2.3%, which is hardly any growth, right? So 2.3% average annual growth in output value, right? And it is lower. So if you compare Dr. Manmohan Singh's period, you are witnessing a growth of 3.4%. And if you're comparing Modi ji's period, you will see a growth rate of 2.3%. And this is understandable. Why this is understandable is that, like I explained to you, that India's cereal production cannot really keep increasing. It is either going to stagnate or it may decline for the simple reason that dietary preferences and habits are changing, right? And there is only so much cereals that you actually need. With increasing yield, with increasing productivity, somewhere which is understandable. What is also clearly known, and what is also something which we have witnessed time and time again, is that in the livestock and fisheries subsectors, we are witnessing quite a fabulous growth rate of 5.8% and 9.2%, right? And of course, it is higher than the last 10 years ka period. So if you compare Modi ji's period ka growth rate with Dr. Manmohan Singh ka growth rate, so Modi ji ka period ke andar we are witnessing a better growth rate, and that is understandable. Why that is understandable? Like I said above, that as your per capita income increases, your cereal consumption decreases. Demand for cereals will not be so strong. As compared to that, your per capita income increasing will definitely boost your demand for livestock, will definitely boost your demand for fisheries. This is something which is easily understandable, right? Because this is expected, so on and so forth kind of sectors. Okay, you have to focus on these sectors, right? So poultry meat is 9.2%, fishing aquaculture is 9.1%, eggs and milk is 6.6 and 5.8% respectively. Even within crops, it is better if you start focusing on crops beyond cereals. Even if you look at India's agriculture today, most of the conversation is around MSP, which is provided for cereals, and that too for a handful of cereals, not for all the possible crops. Horticulture के बारे में कोई discussion ही नहीं होता है. Even within crops, horticultural crops का output has been around 4% per annum, which is much higher than what is the output for cereals, right? So non-horticultural regular field crops, your rice and wheat, etc. kind of crops के अंदर, the growth, do as good a job as I can, right? So whenever the internet is breaking, I'm stopping the lecture, I don't speak, and the moment internet is back, I'm speaking. So I'm trying my level best to carry everybody along in this video. Please bear with me. I'm extremely sorry for this. This is out of my control. Now look at states, right? Look at how states have performed. Okay, so going back to the table, right? So if you look at the average performance in agriculture, right? So Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, there is no mention at all of Punjab over here. Where is Punjab? Where is Haryana? Right? Uttar Pradesh is still featuring somewhere on the list. But the all India average is 3.94%, and you are having at least 13 states listed over here which are doing better than the all India average, which are doing considerably better than the all India average, right? So this guy, and we don't see Punjab, we don't see Haryana, we don't see West Bengal, right? And if you look at these states over here that we just named, right? So they are not doing very well, right? They are not doing very well. When it comes to overall agriculture ka growth rate in these three states, Punjab, Haryana, it's 2% and 3.4%. If you look at the growth of the crops subsector within these states, it's just 0.5, 0.7%, right? So you can clearly see over here, you can clearly see that these 13 states ke andar bhi what is performing is livestock and fisheries. So what is the policy takeaway? The policy takeaway is that the accelerated agricultural growth that you are witnessing in the last 2 decades, that's happening in horticulture, in livestock, in fisheries. It is happening because of increasing demand for vegetables, fruits, milk, meat, egg, and fish. And this is something which is not surprising at all, right? Because of diet diversification, people are not going to have only rice and wheat. They are going to spend on other items, right? You are going to see a rise in demand for proteins and micronutrients and so on, right? So uski wajah se what has happened is that there is this trend that we are witnessing. There is new technology. Hybrids are available in vegetables and maize, right? Drip irrigation, high density tissue culture planting in bananas, high yielding broilers, layer breeds. So advancement in technology, quiet revolution in farming, in other areas of farming. We tend to talk so extensively about green revolution, that we quite literally forget about all the color revolutions that have happened in different subsectors of agriculture very quietly. So the quiet revolutions that have been happening in these areas have been the reason behind the trend that we are witnessing, right? Now we have to understand that as policymakers, can we say that all farmers are benefiting from livestock and from fisheries and from horticulture? And the clear answer is no, that not all farmers are benefiting from this. Why? Because if you look at the situation assessment survey for agricultural households conducted by NSSO, so only 53% of the farmers are having income from livestock. Only 6.5% farmers are having income from horticulture crops. If you look at the main earning for 44% of agricultural households, for 45% nearly of the agricultural households, dependent on cereals, pulses, oilseeds, sugarcane, cotton, and other non-horticultural crops, right? So, like we mentioned that in some cases, like for example, pulses वगैरह के अंदर there was decent production growth, right? But बाकी सब के अंदर production growth is stagnant, right? So, what you need to understand is that horticulture, livestock, etc. are doing well, right? What you need to understand is that field crops के अंदर we are seeing some level of stagnancy. So probably we need a technological input or a technological push within field crops as well, right? We know it as a matter of fact in India that oil seeds and pulses ka yield is low, right? So as a result of which we are importing a lot of oil seeds and pulses. If we focus our technological efforts upon increasing the yield and productivity of oil seeds and pulses, we will be able to grow a lot more from our country. We will be able to give a lot better income to our farmers, and we will be able to import a lot less from other countries. Not only will we be able to save precious foreign exchange, but we will also be able to provide support to our farmers in India. This is something that you need to understand very, very clearly, right? We have not had a significant technological breakthrough when it comes to genetically modified BT hybrids. If you look at cotton production, so we have been producing 325 lakh bales in the last 3 years, which is lower than what we were producing in Dr. Manmohan Singh's period of 370 to 400 lakh bales. Again, this is not about politics. It's just that that technology dries up. The booster that technology gives you, the fillip that technology gives you, it is only so much, and after a point in time it starts drying up, right? The dividends of this technology starts drying up, and that's where the problem lies. Okay, I mentioned a couple of political names a couple of times in this article, not because I was discussing politics over here, but it's just easier to say Dr. Manmohan Singh's period and Modi ji's period rather than saying 2004, 2014, 2014, 2024. That's the only reason. That's the only reason it becomes easier to talk about the periods. So to just wrap up my discussion on this first article, right? So you can see that as per Niti Aayog, agriculture is doing reasonably well for itself. There is no need to worry. As per Niti Aayog, 13 states are performing better than the all India average, and Punjab, Haryana are not coming in that particular list. Probably those states are too dependent upon, your regular field crops. They're too dependent on regular field crops, which is probably why they are not seeing their names being listed over here. If you are a farmer and if you are listening to this lecture, livestock and fishing is the way to go. Horticultural crops is the way to go. Trying to have oilseeds and pulses in your basket, can probably help you in fetching better growth in terms of production. Now let us discuss about what's happening to India's foreign exchange. So if you compare the cost of US dollar, 1 unit of foreign currency in domestic currency, what is that cost? So is it like 78 rupees? Is it 80 rupees? Is it 83 rupees? What is the cost of 1 unit of foreign currency in terms of domestic currency? That is what we are discussing over here. As this graph is vividly pointing out to you that in the last 2.5 year period, in April 2022, the foreign exchange rate was around 76 and now it is around 84. This is called depreciation. This is called depreciation. What is depreciation? Depreciation means that dollar is becoming expensive in your country. That means that your currency is weakening, dollar is strengthening relative to your currency. That's why dollar is becoming expensive. You need to pay more rupees to buy $1. So earlier you had to pay 76 rupees to buy $1. Now you have to pay 84 rupees to buy $1. That is what is happening over here. Dollar is becoming expensive. This is called as depreciation. The reverse of this is called as appreciation. When appreciation happens, typically you would see that dollar is becoming cheaper in your country. Dollar is becoming cheaper in your country. So this is the period of appreciation. This one over here, I will change the color so that there is no confusion going ahead, right? Everything that is marked in red over here is period of appreciation. So this is a period, broad period of appreciation because dollar became cheaper in your country, right? As you can see that dollar was costing more than it was costing less, right? This was also a small period of appreciation over here, right? That dollar was costing more than it was costing less, right? This was also a small period of appreciation over here, that dollar was costing less, now it is dollar was costing more, now it is costing less over here, right? Broadly speaking, what you are witnessing is depreciation. There is no two way of that. There is no doubt in my mind about that. There shouldn't be any doubt in your mind about that. That broadly what you are seeing is depreciation. The question is that how much more depreciation can we witness? How much more expensive? Talking about our Indian currency, right? So it went below the 84 mark, 84.07, right? It went below 84 ka mark and it touched an all-time high of all-time low of 84.7, 84.07, right? We have been performing weakly against the dollar, right? So that's what we are discussing. We have seen a depreciation of over 9%, right? We have witnessed a depreciation of over 9%, right? Long-term trend of 30% depreciation over a decade, right? So Indian rupee has been depreciating against the dollar, which is fine, but the rate of depreciation is something which is staggering now, right? So earlier the long-term trend was 30% depreciation over a decade, meaning 3% fall every year, broadly speaking. But since April 2022, in a 2.5 year period, we have witnessed a depreciation of over 9%. The question is that will we be witnessing more depreciation? Now you need to understand that India is not seeing a flight of dollar as such. When does a currency continuously depreciate? When does dollar becomes expensive in any economy? When dollar is being pulled out of your economy. When people are sucking their dollars out of your economy. They don't trust your economy. There is a problem in your economy. It is slowing down. It is unstable, whatever. But India doesn't seem to be exhibiting those problems, right? So the point is that we have been witnessing inflows of foreign institutional investors. $25 billion worth of FII money has been poured into our stock markets, right? So that's the idea. Okay. So this is a trend which is, at some point of time they will put in the money, at some other point of time they will withdraw the money. Now what has happened is that recently they have booked some profit FIIs. They realize that Indian stocks are at all-time high valuations and they book profit, they remove their money. So that causes some amount of depreciation. So appreciation happens typically when there is huge inflows, depreciation happens when there are huge outflows, right? So the sell-off that we are witnessing, right? That's what the idea is, that we are witnessing probably a sell-off by institutional investors, and they are pulling their dollars out because the stock market is right now at a reasonably high levels of valuations. So that's why we are witnessing this depreciation, and we don't need to be worried exactly because we are sitting on very strong foreign exchange reserves, which we have earned either way of exports or we have collected by way of remittances, or we have created by way of NRI deposits, right? So we don't need to be worried exactly about this, right? So the point over here is, right, that like I explained, that rupee's valuation against dollar, it depends upon whether India is attractive as an investment destination or not. So if we are pumping money into India, we will see a continuous appreciation. If we are withdrawing money out of India, we will see a depreciation. So in a environment of geopolitical instability, in an environment of turmoil, typically investors feel very jittery and they start pulling money out of a variety of risky investments. And developing country investments in general are considered to be risky investments. So because of this Israel, Palestine and Iran issue that is happening, Russia, Ukraine, which is right now a side show, right? Nuclear war is something which can be, launched in any theater, right? So there is this definite jitteriness amongst investors to a certain extent, right? So how does weaker rupee impact you, right? So on paper, it makes imports expensive, because if you are importing one candy which was costing $1 and selling it in India, now that $1 is earlier costing you 78 rupees, now that $1 is costing you 84 rupees. So effectively earlier you are converting 78 rupees into $1 and $1 into candy. Now you are converting 84 rupees into $1 and $1 into candy. So your candy has become expensive. So your imported candy has become expensive. So people may buy less of your imported candy. So we are a net importer country. We import a lot of electronics, a lot of machinery, a lot of plastics, a lot of chemicals. So that means that, our import bill kind of increases, right? If you are going for foreign education, which is costing, let's say, $100,000, then you need to convert rupees into $100,000 and take it abroad. So your foreign education becomes expensive. If you're planning a trip to America or to Europe or wherever, your foreign trip becomes expensive because you need to buy dollars to survive in those countries. If you are buying oil from abroad, that oil becomes expensive. And does exporter really benefit from a depreciating currency? Maybe not, because most of the transactions are happening in dollars. So the idea over here is that even as an exporter, when you buy your raw material, right, you import your raw material, you are hurting, right? So if you have a weaker rupee, right, so the idea is that exports should benefit, but given the fact that there is a fragile global economy, given the fact that people are worried, so there is overall a less demand, the demand is not very strong. So if you look at India's merchandise export growth, we have hardly grown anything. It's just 1.1% growth as compared to last year, April, August, right? Of course, services exports is growing, but the point over here is that exports of goods at least has not benefited, right? And if you have a weakening rupee, your import bill is definitely not helping you. Your imports are definitely becoming expensive. And given the fact that we use a lot of imported content in our production, overall it may not be a good news for India. So these were my two articles. I'm extremely sorry for patchy internet. I see that despite the patchy internet, a good number of students have been able to, participate in the lecture, and I'm extremely thankful to you for the same. We'll meet tomorrow again. Take it ahead. Thank you so much, guys.